All right, today we are going to unpack a really powerful leadership framework that the Culture Council has been looking at. And honestly, it's a model that feels like it was built for the high stakes, sometimes chaotic world of patient care. It really gets to the heart of things by starting with one critical question.
I mean, really think about that for a second. In the organized chaos of a hospital, you've got multiple departments, rotating shifts, a whole team of specialists. It's so easy for accountability to get fuzzy, right? For things to fall through the cracks. So, who really owns the final outcome?
So, to answer that big question, the Culture Council is looking at a pretty unexpected place: leadership principles from former Navy SEAL commanders Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. Now, before you think this is all about combat, it's not at all. It's about how the most elite teams in the world manage to function under unimaginable pressure. And that's something we can definitely learn from.
Okay, first up, let's talk about something I'm pretty sure everyone in healthcare has seen, and that's the trap of blame.
I mean, how many times a day do we hear things like this? The lab results were delayed. It sounds like a simple fact, right? But what it's really doing is subtly shifting responsibility. It's saying, the problem is over there with another department.
Or how about this one? The on-call specialist didn't call back in time. Again, the finger is pointed down the hall, and that just creates friction between the exact teams that absolutely have to work together for our patients. And then, maybe the most damaging one of all, that wasn't my patient. Wow. That phrase, it just builds a wall, doesn't it? It shrinks your responsibility down to the absolute bare minimum and kills any idea of a shared mission. Look, these aren't just excuses, they're symptoms of a much bigger problem. And this is really what it boils down to: the difference between a blame culture and an ownership culture. In a blame culture, when something goes wrong, what's the first response? Find who's at fault. Everybody's focused on protecting themselves, and the result, you just get stuck. Nothing ever really improves. But in an ownership culture, it's completely different. The first response is, okay, how do we find a solution? The focus is on the mission, and for us, the mission is always patient success. The outcome there is exactly what we want: constant improvement and real growth. So how do we make that shift? Well, it all starts with a new way of thinking about accountability. And that brings us to the core idea: extreme ownership. So what is it? It's pretty simple, but it's also radical. It's the idea that as a leader, you take total responsibility for everything that impacts your mission. Not just the things you directly control. We're talking about everything: your team's performance, the resources you have, the challenges you face, all of it. You own the entire outcome, period. Now, I want to be super clear about this. This is not about bringing military tactics into the hospital. Not at all. This is about a leadership mindset that works in any high-stakes environment. Think about it. The principles that help a team succeed when lives are on the line on the battlefield, well, those are the exact same principles that can create a safer, more effective team right there at the bedside. It's a perfect fit. You know, that word extreme can sometimes throw people off, but it doesn't mean you have to be some kind of harsh, yelling at people kind of leader. It's not about being extreme in your actions. It's about being extreme in the scope of what you take responsibility for. It means even when a problem seems like it's someone else's fault, say another department, you still look at it and ask yourself, okay, what could I have done differently to help prevent this? Okay, so that's the big idea, but how do you actually do this? Let's break down what ownership looks like in action. It really comes down to a 3-step process, and it's something you can use every single time. Step 1, you acknowledge the failure, but without pointing fingers. This is the hard part, right? It means checking your ego at the door and just saying, hey, this didn't work. Step 2, you analyze your role. You have to ask yourself, what could I have done differently? Maybe it was communication, maybe planning, maybe getting the right resources. And finally, step 3, you create a plan to fix it. And this is key. You get that new plan out to the entire team so it doesn't happen again. And here's where it gets really interesting. When the team fails, the leader with extreme ownership steps up and takes all the responsibility, all of it. Think about what that does. It builds massive trust and makes it safe for people to be honest. But what happens when the team succeeds? The leader gives all the credit away to the team. That's what boosts morale and gets everyone working together. It's simple. You own the failures and you give away the wins. And you know what the best part is? This stuff is contagious. It spreads like wildfire. When a leader, whether that's a senior physician, a charge nurse, or a department head, starts modeling this behavior, it completely changes the game. It sets a new, higher standard for everyone.
Pretty soon, you've got a culture where everyone, from the most experienced surgeon down to the brand new resident, feels that same sense of ownership for the mission.
But there's a really important catch here. This isn't about taking any single idea to an insane extreme. That's where the next concept comes in, the dichotomy of leadership. It's all about balance. A great leader has to be confident, for sure, but also humble enough to admit when someone else on the team has a better idea. You have to be demanding and push for high standards, but you also have to be the person who nurtures your team and helps them grow. See, it's about living in that tension, finding that perfect balance between two things that seem like opposites.
So let's bring this all home. Why does any of this really matter in a hospital? What's the ultimate point? It's as simple and as important as it gets. Better teams make for safer patients.
So let's talk about the payoff here, because it's huge. For you as the leader, you get a team that's resilient and high-performing. And you get to stop putting out fires all day and actually focus on the big strategic stuff. For your team, they get to work in a place with real trust, where it's safe to speak up. That empowers everyone to step up and solve problems. But the most important payoff, of course, is for the patient. They get a team that's totally in sync, a team that learns from its mistakes and is always getting better. That's why this isn't just some leadership theory. It is a patient safety strategy, plain and simple.
So I want to leave you with a challenge. As you go through the rest of your day, your shift, your week, you're going to hit a problem. That's a guarantee. When you do, instead of that knee-jerk reaction to figure out whose fault it is, I want you to stop and ask yourself this one simple question. What is one part of this problem that I can take ownership of? Right now, today.